Hi, this is Ryan. Welcome to my Module 4 Stepping Stone video for programming gameplay. Uh, a lot has changed since my video last week regarding the line trace that we added. So rather than going line by line and showing you what each piece does, I'm just going to give you a higher level overview of some of the new actions and functions that we've added, some of the new logic that we've put in, and some of the new classes that we have to give you an idea of what's going on. If we went line by line, this would take forever. So let's talk about what new features we have in the game. The major one we have is a grappling hook that will pull the player towards valid targets. We've got a destructible wall. We've got a door. We've got some lights. We've got a teleporter. We have a door key. A lot of these don't really have a whole lot in them. Like the door. Well, the door actually has a lot. The light director doesn't really have a whole lot, but so we've got a couple of things to move our player around, to interact with the environment, and so forth. The major features, like I said, is the grappling hook and interacting with the destructible wall and turning the lights on. The rest of it is more just some support elements that kind of help with the flow of the game. We've added some new actions to our player input. The use action is really just used to interact with the world camera that I have. These two right here, the set, aim, and fire hook, are the ones we're going to focus on a little bit more in depth. And then I did wind up adding back in these axis bindings for turning and looking, because we now have two perspectives. We have an isometric perspective and a third person perspective, which that's pretty much all I'm going to focus on there, because it's not really the subject of this video. The one other change I wanted to note is that I've taken our line trace that we discussed last week that hides scenery that's blocking our player view. I've extracted that to its own function called isotrace. The logic's pretty much all the same. Nothing's been changed here. I just felt it made it more readable to have it in its own function rather than all in the tick. Sorry. There we go. Rather than all in the tick function itself. So with that, the other two things I want to note is I've got an aim hook function and a pull character function. These are all also part of the grappling hook, and we'll discuss those when we get to them. But first I want to start with the set aim function, which is one of the new action bindings that we have. And all the set aim does is on a mouse click, it just sets is aiming to true. And if you'll remember, let's go back. That was one of the things that I just mentioned. I'm sorry. No. Set is aiming to true, which is what calls our aim hook. So our aim hook is being called on the tick, but it's all starting with the mouse click to set is aiming to true. So let's talk about aim hook. Aim hook is being called from the tick. And what does it do? Well, it's another line trace. This one's a little bit more of a traditional line trace. We're getting the viewpoint of the camera, and then we're extending that out to a scalar of 10,000. And what does that line trace do? Well, it's looking for an actor that either has a grapple tag or a break tag. We'll talk about the difference between those here in a second. Actually, the difference as far as the grapple hook is concerned, there's not a difference. I just wanted to separate objects that were being pulled towards for movement versus things that we're trying to break. If it catches either of those, then it's going to assign the hit actor to our hit actor variable. Otherwise, it's going to point null. And then I've got a debug line here that I'm using basically as a crosshair for now until we get some UI elements in. Then Upon releasing the mouse, we have our fire hook. The fire hook sets is aiming to false, and as long as you're still aimed at a hit actor that has the proper tags on it, it will set the trace end to that location and set is pulling to true and then get rid of the hit actor. Now, is pulling was the other part of the tick that calls this pull character, and all this pull character function does is it does an interpolation of our actor's location to the target location that we set in the fire hook. So this is our starting location, this is our end location, and this is our speed. So basically you push the mouse button down, aim at a target, release, and it pulls the character towards that target. So that is our that's our grappling feature. The one other thing I wanted to note is in our on overlap function, we do have a setting here that if you overlap with an actor with one of those tags, then it sets is pulling to false. We need this, otherwise, once we hit our location, we don't have a way to stop being pulled towards that location. So we added that to the I added that to the overlap so that you'll stop pulling. We've also got overlaps in here to change perspective, like I mentioned earlier. And there are some trigger volumes that have certain tags to set the perspective. So let's talk about our destruction actor. We've got an actor with destruction. I know it's a very, very creative name, right? We have our on component hit function. And so that calls the damage on component hit, which casts to a player, and then calls our destroy function with the location of this actor as well as the location or the forward vector of the actor that's hitting it, and then that applies damage to the actor so that it breaks apart. I don't have, you'll notice here, I don't have any functionality for it to be removed from the game world yet, which does introduce a bug that we're gonna see here momentarily. It kind of is hard to traverse because I don't really have a jump action right now. Our door on the overlap begin, well, on the tick, it has a door rotation, and that door rotation is just a linear interpolation or a lerp to either open or close the door. The direction that the door is opening or closing is based on the rotation of the actor, or rather the inverse of that rotation. And so it's basically a swinging door. So if I walk towards it one way, it's going to swing open. If I walk towards the other way, it's going to swing open the other direction. And that'll make more sense when you see it in action. We are checking to see if the player has a key for it. Otherwise, there's a message that says that the door is locked. And then when you leave the door, it's going to close itself. So this is a great place to talk about our door key, which there's not a whole lot here. There's just an overlap function that casts to the player, and if the player doesn't already have a key, it sets that to true and then destroys this actor. Our teleporter is just a small class that's got two nodes. It's got an entry node and an exit node, and then it's got a trigger volume. So when the player overlaps with the trigger volume, then it's going to set the actor location and rotation to the exit node. And this is just a way to get me back to the beginning so that you can use the key on the door. And then once we open the door inside the building, we've got a light director. And again, it's just got an overlap function that I have this right here if other component has the lights tag, and that's because I've got two overlap components, or two components on my player that generate overlap events. So I've only got one of those that has the lights tag on it, and then it just toggles the lights on. The toggle light function toggles the visibility. I've got 3 different lights here, and I didn't want to really go through building an array, so it just toggles visibility for all of them. And that's pretty much it. I know that was a lot to take in. I know I went through it pretty quickly, but it'll all make sense right now. So let's start our game and see how it works. So I've got my starting area, and then I've got this building over here, and if I try and walk up to the door, then I've got that message that says the door is locked. And it's triggering twice because, like I said, I've got two volumes on. So now I come over here, and there's going to be a trigger here, and we can see we've got a world camera that shows our destructible wall. That little cone right there is our key, and then we've got our teleporter entrance node. And we're going to come back to the player, and then from here, so like I said, we're in an isometric view here, and you'll see here I've got that the wall removes. When I start walking this direction, now we're in a third-person view, and I can look around like what you expect from a third person. And then, so I've got these little posts here, and there's my line trace for the set aim, and when I aim at them, I get pulled towards it. And if I aim at something invalid, nothing happens. This one's a little bit tricky. My volume, I need to work on getting my volume set. I always have trouble connecting with that one. Boom. And then we can come over here, and boom. Now, this part is a little bit off. The idea here was to be able to grapple a wall and get pulled into it and immediately break it. I haven't got it working quite right, so I'm going to get pulled to this wall and nothing's going to happen. So that's why I let this little gap right here, because I have to physically trigger this wall right now. So if I run into it, it crumbles. But since I don't have a jump function, it gets kind of tricky to get across. So there's definitely some bugs still in this game, but the basic functionality works. And then I'm going to pick up the key, walk into the teleporter, and now you notice my view's a little off. Like I said, still some bugs. I wanted to get it set to the other view, but we're back in our isometric view, and we come over here, and I can come over here so I can at least see the door. And if I come to the door opens. And I walk in, lights come on. If I walk over here, lights turn off, and I can come back outside. And I can even come back over here and change back to my third person view, do it all over again. I can also come back this direction and change back to my isometric view. Again, view is a little bit off. I'm still working on that, but I can still come in here. Everything works, minus a few issues here and there. So I hope after going through all the code and stuff, it makes a little bit more sense what I'm trying to do here, and with the grappling hook and destructibles and that sort of thing. Thank you for watching.